Joined by the host of Overdrive, Bryan Hayes. And Bryan, it is QB question week here at TSN, and there, well, aren't many quarterbacks that bring up more questions than Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence. He had a highly decorated college career at Clemson, won a national championship as a freshman. So it's no wonder he was seen as a potential generational talent and went first overall in the 2021 draft. In his first 3 NFL seasons, he's only been to the playoffs once, is yet to complete a season where he's won double-digit numbers of games. So we asked the question, will Trevor Lawrence's performance ever live up to the hype with which he entered the National Football League?
Yes, I think it will. And you mentioned he hasn't won double-digit games yet in the NFL. They went 9-8 last year, 9-8 the year before, right? It has not been some unmitigated disaster there. He has made the playoffs in his second year. Let's not forget, Urban Meyer was his head coach the first year. That's a disaster. They basically had to restart. Now you have Doug Peterson there, the quarterback whisperer. He won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. If he could do that with Nick Foles, I believe he can do it with Trevor Lawrence. And I think Lawrence has all of the ingredients of a superstar, face of a franchise, winning quarterback. He's got the size, he's got the arm, he's got the running ability, he's got the swagger, he's got the leadership, he's got past winning. I understand it was at the collegiate level, but that was a dynasty basically at Clemson.
Sure
he
was
the man at Clemson, and he's going to carry it over into the NFL. Turns the ball over a little bit. He's got to work on that undoubtedly, but he's still a very, very young quarterback in this league. I'm a big believer in Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I am as well, and I think there's a bit of a rush to judgment sometimes about quarterbacks in the National Football League. I mean, well, remember the days they used to sit for a year or two. I mean, year 3 was the first year you might start. Now we're passing judgment on guys after 3 years. Well, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. You know, he's not what he was promised to be. I still think there's a lot ahead for a guy who's 24 years of age. And one of the reasons I think he may not have lived up to expectations thus far has been his supporting cast. I mean, you look at their top 3 receivers last season, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. They're all good receivers. None of them are great. I don't know that there's one that you would say is a top receiver in the National Football League. And if you're talking about measuring Trevor Lawrence as a top quarterback in the NFL, he's going to need top targets. Now, I don't love what they did this offseason to try to address that situation in adding Gabe Davis. I mean, Gabe Davis was a guy who fell out of favor in Buffalo. He had 5 games last year with Josh Allen as his quarterback that he had 0 catches. Now, I'm not sure this is going to be the answer for Trevor Lawrence. So in the short term, that concerns me. But I think long term, yeah, I still think he projects. You put him with better players, which eventually we'll hope to see in Jacksonville, you're going to see a better output.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Gabe Davis is likely their number 2 option to a wide receiver. Christian Kirk will be the number 1 guy. He's a good receiver. He's not a superstar wide receiver. He's not Justin Jefferson who's going to drag down bad passes for you and make your life easier as a quarterback. Gabe Davis at number 2, that's an issue. But I think they're trying to insulate him. They're trying to build up the offensive line. Evan Ingram's their number 1 tight end. He can catch balls. I think he's got the ability to put up some touchdowns. Travis Etienne Jr., obviously his teammate at Clemson. Got injured that first year in the league, his rookie year, but he broke out a bit last year. I think they're banking on him continuing to grow as well as a true number 1 running back who can run the ball, catch the ball. You get a tight end who can catch the ball and block for you. That's where it's going to have to go for Trevor Lawrence. But you're right. At some point, every great quarterback needs that number 1 over-the-top deep ball option to help them. It's not there in Jacksonville. But again, this is not about just this year. Like we've established, it wasn't about just the first 3 years trying to define this guy. He's likely going to be in Jacksonville for well over a decade, probably playing the NFL for over 15 years. He's got a lot of time to continue to grow and eventually meet all the hype coming out of Clemson.
I think one of the things he's got to do, and it's kind of reflected in the interception stats, 14 of them last season, and that is facing pressure. I mean, he has not been good at facing pressure. I believe he was 43rd last season among NFL quarterbacks when it came to facing pressure. And, you know, that's so much when teams know that that's the way to get you off your game, you know you're going to see that. So I think it's a big challenge for him in year number 4 when teams know he struggled with that during the first 3 years. They're going to bring it. Can he show that he's grown? Can he show that he can recognize those things and make those plays when the heat's going to be on him in a way that he hasn't thus far, certainly last season?
Yeah, I think that's very valid. And also that speaks to him reading the defenses better as well, right? It's not only like we look at the pressure and say, oh, he didn't get that off or he was uncomfortable. Maybe he didn't read it properly. So that comes with growth as well. He's got to read the defense properly. He's got to be willing to take some hits, still get some plays out. If you're going to be rushed, it may not be a perfect throw. That gets back to the weapons, right? Sometimes you need the talent around you to pick you up when you don't make a perfect play. And another reality is with the quarterbacks in the AFC, it feels like you have to mention all of the competition at that position, right?
Yeah.
Within his division. A year ago, we weren't talking about C.J. Stroud as a guy competing with Trevor Lawrence. Now he is.
Yeah,
Maybe he
absolutely.
surpassed Trevor Lawrence within his own division. That says nothing of Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers if he's healthy, Josh Allen. There's a long list of great quarterbacks in the AFC. He's got to keep up.
Yeah, I always have some questions sometimes about guys that come from super dominant college programs like Bryce Young did, like Trevor Lawrence did. You know, how often did they trail in the fourth quarter? How often were they running for their lives, compared to the offensive line? Look at the targets those guys played with in college. Sometimes you don't get the best of everything when you move on to the NFL.